In the grand halls of the imperial palace, once the seat of unshakable power and confidence, a cold tension hung over the war council chamber. Gilded columns and banners of the Galactic Empire, which had witnessed centuries of conquest and command, now bore silent witness to an unprecedented anxiety. The great lords of the Empire, each adorned with the insignia of their ancient houses, paced, argued, and gestured sharply, their tones rising and falling in a cacophony of panic and disbelief. The air, usually thick with the scent of incense and certainty, now carried the bitter tang of fear. No one among them could have predicted the turn of events that had unfolded over the last 10 days. The Earth Alliance, an upstart coalition of humans from a distant spiral arm, had, in a matter of days, reversed the tide of what was meant to be a swift and crushing campaign. The Empire's fleets, vast and seemingly invincible, had surged forward, overwhelming outposts and colonies in their path. The initial stages had gone exactly as planned. Defenses crumbled, planetary governors surrendered, and the banners of the Empire were raised over distant worlds. For the first 48 hours, it had seemed like another routine expansion, a mere exercise in imperial might. But then, the unexpected happened. The humans, whom the Council had dismissed as primitive and weak, struck back with a ferocity and precision that defied intelligence reports. The first signs were subtle. A supply convoy vanished without a trace. A communications relay went dark. Then, entire Imperial garrisons ceased responding, their last transmissions garbled and frantic. Within 72 hours, the Earth Alliance had reclaimed outpost after outpost, using tactics the Empire had never encountered. Tactics that blended technological ingenuity with adaptability, and an uncanny knack for exploiting every weakness in the Empire's doctrine. It was not just their weapons or ships, though those had proven unexpectedly advanced. It was the way the humans fought. They coordinated across vast distances, adapted to Imperial strategies in real time, and seemed to anticipate every move. Reports filtered in of sabotage, infiltration, and electronic warfare that left even the Empire's most secure systems compromised. Dreadnoughts were stranded, stations isolated, and entire divisions forced to surrender or retreat. By the 10th day, the humans had not only regained their lost territory, but had begun a counteroffensive, pushing deep into sectors the Empire had never thought vulnerable. Now, the War Council was in chaos. Grand Admiral Syraxis, his silvered hair disheveled for the first time in living memory, slammed a fist onto the table, his voice echoing off the cold stone walls. "This is impossible. They should have been crushed. Our analysts assured us their navy was outmatched, their command structure primitive. How did this happen?" Across from him, Minister Lyra of Intelligence, her eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights, retorted, "The analysts were wrong. These humans, these Earthlings, are not what we thought. Their technology is different, yes, but adaptable. And their unity? It's something we underestimated." A third voice, deeper and more forceful, cut through the argument. Lord High Strategist Varn, whose victories against rebellious sectors were legend, squared his shoulders and glared at the assembled council. "We have faced setbacks before. We are the Empire. We do not yield. We must find a way to adapt, to crush this resistance before it spreads. The pride of the Empire cannot be sullied by a pack of upstart mammals." But behind the bravado, fear gnawed at every heart in the room, once a place of certainty and arrogance, now echoed with the uncertainty of defeat. Generals and admirals whispered about the fate of their fleets, the loyalty of their own officers, and the growing unrest back in the core worlds. The people, too, had heard rumors of catastrophic losses, of entire legions gone missing, of the humiliating retreat from worlds that had been promised as new jewels in the imperial crown. Meanwhile, in the outer reaches of the Empire's domain, the Earth Alliance pressed forward. Their ships, sleek and bristling with weaponry, advanced into territory thought impregnable. Imperial patrols vanished, planetary defense grids failed, and civilian populations began to murmur about the possibility of liberation. The myth of imperial invincibility, carefully cultivated over centuries, was shattering. Back in the council chamber, the debate raged on. Some argued for a full retreat, to regroup and fortify the core worlds. Others, blinded by pride, demanded a massive counterattack to show the humans the true wrath of the Empire. Yet, as the hours wore on and reports of fresh defeats continued to arrive, the Council's confidence eroded further. "We cannot simply abandon these sectors," hissed Admiral Talvin, his face pale. "If we withdraw, we signal weakness. The other subject races will rise. The border worlds will rebel. The very fabric of the Empire will unravel." Minister Lyra shook her head. "If we stay, we risk annihilation. The humans are not stopping. They are accelerating. Every hour we spend arguing is another system lost." Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. The Emperor, silent until now, finally spoke, his voice cold as the void. "Pride is a luxury we can ill afford. We must understand our enemy, or we will perish. Summon the best minds, military, scientific, diplomatic. We will learn from these humans. We will find their weakness, and then we will strike back." But even as the Emperor spoke, there was a sense, subtle but growing, that perhaps this time the Empire had met its match. The Council disbanded, each member retreating to their own thoughts, their own fears, and their own plans. In the corridors, servants and lesser officials whispered of the humans, of their power, and of what it meant for the future. On the bridge of an Earth Alliance flagship, Captain Alara Chen watched the Imperial border shrink on her tactical display. Her crew, tired but exultant, worked tirelessly to coordinate the next phase of the offensive. Messages of support and gratitude poured in from liberated worlds, while intelligence teams sifted through captured Imperial data for weaknesses. She knew the fight was far from over. The Empire was wounded, but it was still vast and dangerous. Yet for the first time, there was hope. Hope that the tyranny of the Empire could be ended, that freedom could spread across the stars. As the Earth Alliance fleets pushed deeper into Imperial space, the balance of power in the galaxy shifted. Old alliances were tested, new ones formed. Neutral worlds watched with bated breath, while resistance movements in the Empire's shadowed corners found new courage. The humans, once dismissed as weak, had become the storm that threatened to sweep away centuries of oppression. The Empire, for all its might, now faced a choice: adapt or fall. And so, as the War Council struggled to craft a new strategy, the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The next moves would decide not just the outcome of a war, but the very shape of civilization itself. Inside the capital, unrest simmered. The citizens of the Empire, once fed a steady diet of propaganda and tales of conquest, now heard whispers of defeat and humiliation. Families awaited news from sons and daughters on the front lines, dreading the worst. On the holonets, government censors worked overtime, but rumors proved impossible to contain. The word Earthling took on a new, fearsome power. In hidden chambers, the Empire's scientists and engineers labored to unlock the secrets of human technology. Fragments of captured ships were analyzed, data cores decrypted, and desperate efforts made to close the gap. But the Empire's rigidity, once its strength, now became its greatest weakness. Innovation was stifled by tradition, initiative punished by hierarchy. The humans, by contrast, seemed to thrive on chaos and change. Some in the Empire advocated for negotiation, for a truce before more was lost. But such voices were quickly silenced by pride, by fear, by the relentless machinery of imperial authority. The Emperor himself, though shaken, refused to contemplate surrender. "The Empire endures," he declared. "We will prevail." But even as the Emperor clung to the old ways, others plotted in the shadows. Ambitious nobles and generals, sensing the winds of change, began to hedge their bets. Some reached out in secret to the Earth Alliance, offering intelligence or aid in exchange for promises of power. Others whispered of rebellion, of a new order born from the ashes of defeat. The Earth Alliance, for its part, advanced with caution. Their commanders knew the Empire was not yet beaten, that a cornered beast was most dangerous. But they also saw opportunity, a chance not just to win a war, but to reshape the galaxy for generations to come. On newly liberated worlds, celebrations erupted. Statues of imperial overlords were toppled, and the banners of the Alliance raised. Old wounds began to heal, and hopes long thought dead flickered to life. Yet the scars of occupation ran deep, and the work of rebuilding would take years. Meanwhile, the first Earth Alliance envoys ventured into imperial space, seeking allies among the oppressed. They spoke of freedom, of unity, and of a future beyond fear. Some listened, some doubted, but all felt the tremors of change. Back in the War Council, the arguments grew more desperate. Plans were drafted, only to be torn apart by dissent. Accusations flew, of incompetence, of betrayal, of sabotage. The unity of the Empire, once absolute, now fractured under the strain. And through it all, the humans pressed on. Their fleets struck with surgical precision, targeting supply lines, communications hubs, and key installations. They fought not just with weapons, but with information, turning the Empire's own systems against it. Every victory inspired others. Every defeat sapped the Empire's will. The war, once thought a mere formality, now became a struggle for survival, a test of resolve, of adaptability, of vision. In time, the Empire would find its answer. Some would cling to the old ways, fighting to the bitter end. Others would embrace change, seeking a place in the new order. The galaxy, once divided by fear and oppression, now stood on the brink of transformation. And as the Earth Alliance marched forward, the lesson became clear. Never underestimate those you seek to conquer, for even the smallest spark can ignite a fire that changes the stars. The days ahead would be hard, and the cost of victory high. But in the halls of the Empire, and on the worlds of the Alliance, a new hope was born. A hope that, at last, the darkness would give way to light. The fate of the galaxy was in motion, and nothing would ever be the same. In the weeks that followed, the Earth Alliance's advance became inexorable. Their fleets moved with precision, liberating world after world, dismantling the infrastructure of imperial control. Each victory brought new allies to their cause. Alien races, once cowed by the Empire, now emboldened by the sight of imperial defeat. Resistance cells, long dormant, sprang to life. Messages from the Alliance reached even the most remote corners of the Empire, promising aid and freedom. The imperial military, stretched thin and plagued by desertion, struggled to maintain order. Commanders who once ruled through fear now looked over their shoulders, wary of betrayal from within. In the imperial capital, the mood shifted from anxiety to desperation. The council, once a bastion of unity, became a battlefield of factions. Some demanded total war, the mobilization of every resource for a final, apocalyptic struggle. Others urged negotiation, recognizing the futility of further resistance. But the Emperor, proud to the last, refused to yield. "We are the heirs of 1,000 worlds," he proclaimed. "We will not bow to barbarians." Yet, the cracks in the Empire widened. Food shortages led to riots. The economy faltered. Once loyal governors declared independence or defected to the Alliance. The propaganda machine, unable to keep pace with reality, lost its grip on the people. In the shadows, conspiracies multiplied. Generals plotted coups. Ministers hoarded resources for their own survival. The old order, built on fear and obedience, teetered on the edge of collapse. Against this backdrop, the human advance continued. On the front lines, soldiers and commanders forged bonds with alien allies, learning from one another, sharing strategies and stories. The Alliance became more than just a human endeavor. It became a movement, a vision of a galaxy united by choice, not coercion. Each new victory brought fresh challenges. The Empire's remnants fought with the desperation of the doomed, unleashing weapons of terror and destruction. The Alliance responded with restraint, determined to win not just the war, but the peace that would follow. On liberated worlds, the process of healing began. Old wounds reopened, but so too did possibilities. New governments formed, economies rebuilt, cultures revived. The scars of empire would not vanish overnight, but hope took root. Back in the imperial capital, the final reckoning approached. The council, reduced to a handful of diehards, clung to the old ways. The emperor, isolated and paranoid, trusted no one. The people, weary of war and privation, yearned for change. And then, at last, the alliance fleets appeared in the skies above the capital. The final battle was brief, almost anticlimactic. The defenders, demoralized and outnumbered, surrendered or fled. The emperor was captured, his reign at an end. The galaxy exhaled as if waking from a long nightmare. In the aftermath, the work of rebuilding began in earnest. The alliance, conscious of the dangers of power, worked to establish a new order, one based on cooperation, respect, and the rule of law. The mistakes of the past would not be repeated. The story of the war became legend. New holidays were declared, monuments raised, histories rewritten. The lesson was clear. Empires built on pride and fear are doomed to fall. Only those who embrace change, who recognize the strength and diversity and the power of hope, can endure. For the humans, once dismissed as weak, the victory was bittersweet. The cost had been high, the burden heavy, but they had proven, to themselves and to the galaxy, that strength is not measured by might alone. And so, as the stars turned and new generations rose, the memory of the war endured, not as a tale of conquest, but as a testament to the indomitable spirit of those who refused to be broken. The galaxy would never forget the day the Empire learned, too late, the true power of the human heart. The echoes of those 10 days reverberated for centuries, shaping destinies, inspiring dreams, and reminding all who heard the tale that no power is invincible, and that hope, once kindled, can light even the darkest night.